Hey, Danny, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am excellent, better than I ever been. Super excited to feel like I'm coming out of a fog. So this conversation, I'm so ready for. It's with the powerhouse of a woman. I mean, I have been literally watching her career and celebrating like she my whole bestie. Every time I see her accomplish something new or reframe how she's parenting or loving on her family, I truly do get excited watching women know that they can be all the things. They do not have to sit inside of this box while also striving for more and bringing other women along. So Rakia Reynolds, she is just, like I said, truly a powerhouse. She is the founder of Skai Blue Media. And today we get to hop into a whole conversation. Are you ready, Danny?
I'm ready. The glory of the story. Okay. The glory of the story. That's what we're talking about. Welcome, Rakia.
Thank you so much. First of all, I love y'all's energy, and I feel like we are all in each other's brains because I talk a lot about the story behind the glory. So when you talked about that, I used to have a hashtag for many years, and my storytelling, I would hashtag story behind the glory, because a lot of folks believe that entrepreneurship is all of this glory, but you don't really know the story, and it's tough. So while folks are seeing you on Instagram or Twitter or all the places, LinkedIn or wherever you get your social medias, the Reddit, the Web3, the metaverse, all of those things, people see this sort of glam, sort of like the glamour of it all, the glitter of it all. And there's a lot of glory in it, obviously. Like there's like, you do it because it's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. But there's always like a deep, intentional, well thought out, but sometimes challenging story behind all of that glory.
Oh yeah. And we're going to tap into that too, because I always tell people you get mad at your chapter 1 because you're looking at somebody else's chapter 20 when you don't know what it took to get there. Number 1, and you're envious or you're jealous of what they have at their chapter 20, but what they've gone through would have broken you at chapter 4. Like, so don't be envious of another person's journey, successes, or path, because you have your own unique one. And if you can tap into that and like know who you are, be confident in whomever that is, it helps to inform your choices so that they align with who you are. And it also helps to reframe and properly frame the story that you tell yourself. So who is it that you say you are?
Wow. I love this question. And people ask me this question all of the time. And it's so hard to answer only because I feel like for myself, it's a lengthy answer. I know who I am as a person. I know who I'm destined to be. I know who I was, like as a child. I didn't know it at that time, but I know now looking back, oh my gosh, I know exactly who that 4th grader was. I know exactly who that 6th grader was, and that college student, and that woman that got married at a younger age and had kids, at a younger, traditionally younger ages that society sort of puts in step with us. But right now I am a mother, a wife, a leader, an educator, a constant learner. I am someone who is deep in my own knowing, that is also pursuing how to be a little more tapped into more of my knowing. I've always been a person that's like knew my knowing. And I think at the place that I am now, I'm so excited about acknowledging all of the hats and the titles that I wear. There was a point in my life where I couldn't answer that. I'd say, oh, I'm a mother, a wife, a business owner. And I wasn't comfortable because I'd worn so many hats. But now I'm someone wearing many hats, as a leader and an educator, an entrepreneur, a mentor, and someone who's also a mentee, an investor, so there are a lot of hats that I wear. So it's always a lengthy answer.
No worries. It's okay. I like the lengthy answer because it gets to show folks like, yo, you're not a circle. It's more like an octagon or a hexagon. Like
you can be
that's
all
why
the
I wore an
things.
octopus earring. So I wore an octopus earring the first 5 years of my business. It was a big one that I would wear when people would Google me. It was me in a hat because I literally and figuratively wore the words that described me. So I believe in descriptors. So I would always wear these big hats, firecracker hats, big hats. That's how people started to know who I was, because I said, I'm a woman of many hats. And then I also wore an octopus earring. So every year somebody would buy me an octopus something, a bracelet, an earring, a necklace. And so now I've decided to put it back on, and I bought my own octopus earring. So I'm wearing it now.
I love that.
I love that, but it's crazy because I can't see your earrings. So I said octagon, not knowing, and I didn't know that story about the hats. I just like women who intentionally take up space. Oh, that just does it for me.
And I love this idea. And I know that we're kind of coming into that just as a society of women who can just do it all. And we can be it all, and we don't have to like just decide, oh, I'm a wife and a mother, and then it stops there. It's like, no, you can be a wife and a mother and have that, but you can also be an entrepreneur. You can also be an investor. You can also do all these things where before it's like we really weren't given the permission. And we were just like, well, I'm not going to ask for permission. I ask for forgiveness if I need to, because we're like, who cares what anybody has to say? Women are like, we're just going to do it. And I love that. I always say that biologically women are better multitaskers, and it just shows so much more. So now, like, it was like, oh, we're multitasking by cooking and cleaning and taking care of the children. But now it's like, no, we're multitasking like the world, you know? So I love when you're like, yeah, I have these octopus earrings. I am this person that does all these things. That's amazing. I'm happy that it is long-winded, and I hope it gets longer.
I don't know, y'all. I'm trying to ramp down. Over the next decade or so. I'm like, I got to ramp down.
And that's okay too, because here's the thing, you don't have to do it all. You can do it all without doing it all. So I'm a firm believer in like, I like to hire help. Like, I know I want to have another kid, and I absolutely know that I'm gonna need the night nanny and nurse to meet me at the hospital, to meet the tiny human that you are about to help me raise. Like, I'm not playing this game with y'all. I need to know who's the assistant who going to be in the next room, who is going to help me with all the things, because I can do it all by not doing it all. What does it look like to delegate and to incorporate, folks into my life to help me, because I've got big dreams, big vision, a lot of like what I've seen you do, Rakia, with execution. But I feel that where a lot of times women, sometimes we mess up, and it kind of leads us into really dark places, is we do try to do it all. Right. You can have it all, but you don't have to do it all,
Yeah. And, Rakia is keeping in that kind of have it all, keeping along that, as someone who has found success in love and family, business, legacy, how have you cultivated your life to have it all? Like, what was that process like for you?
Right. I think you all just nailed it on the head. I mean, I'm going into my 11th year of business, and I've never operated this business without an executive assistant. I've never, I think my first 2 years of business, because it was like, couldn't afford to bring on someone full time. I had like interns and things like that. But once I started to see, okay, this is something, very much giving something. Sorry, the TikTok. something. My kids would laugh, but I never saw me in a space of I. That's one thing I always tell people at Skai Blue Media. We never operate in a space of I. It's always we. Our wins and our failures are we. So if I win something, when people say, oh, Rakia, you get to work with, a Serena Williams, we work with her. Even I might be on all the calls, or team members might be on all the calls, but we as a team, if you contribute a thought, if you collaborate, if you send an email, if you say, hey, did you see this thing? Hey, I want you to be aware of this tweet. We do it together. And so when you talk about a nanny, I knew when I found out we were pregnant with our third child, let me tell you, it was a meltdown. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I vividly remember sitting down on a sidewalk, coming from the doctor and bawling. People were walking by like, ma'am, are you okay? Ma'am, are you okay? And I'm like, TBH, no, because there's no way that I know I can do all of these things. And I was envisioning myself with a baby carrier, with the car seat thing. And I remember saying I had to get a nanny.
Yeah.
And one time I tried to operate without a nanny. And I still remember, y'all, I was like, oh, I'll tell my nanny today, like, I don't need her. Like, I can just do this by myself. And let me tell you, I had my son in an infant carrier. I had my daughter in the thing here. I was holding my other daughter's hand. So I'm like, you know, doing this. I had on heels and stockings. So this is the definition. If a photo was, you cannot have it all, this is it. I had on stockings and I had on heels. I tripped on the sidewalk over a pebble. No. And I remember being able to fall in a way that I let go of my daughter's hand. I was able to sit the carrier down and hold my son like this, scrape my knees up. The shoe went flying. Knees are bloody. And I was like, Rakia. So when I was little, my mother said to me, Rakia, you cannot be on every ship that sails, because I'm one of those kids. I wanted to do everything. I'm like, Mom, on Saturday, I want to be this person. On Sunday, I want to be this person. I want to be student class president. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do that. And my mother was like, you're going to burn yourself out before you become an adult. You cannot be on every ship that sails. And as a rebellious teen, I was like, yes, I can. I can do anything that I want to do. Like, I have boundaries and I can do this. But listen to your mama. Listen to your mama. Your mama told you you cannot be on every ship that sails. And so now I take that as, I can't be on every ship that sails. I can watch the ships. I can dock them. I can load them. I can ride on them. But I physically cannot be on every single ship that sails. So get the right people around you. I've teamed up. We have a robust team. There's no way that I'd be able to do all of these things. Now, I will say I have some gravitas. I have a creative brain, and people have said, Rakia, you're one of the most creative minds. And I will lean into that.
Yeah.
And thank you. I receive that. However, I can't implement and execute all of my creative brilliance without the executive assistant, the operations person, the executive operations, the director of media and strategy, the associate director of media, the senior account manager, the junior account manager, the coordinator, the interns, the writers, the freelancers, the photographers, the videographers. You need those folks around you. If you're operating an agency, if I say I want the premier destination of a multimedia, multicultural, award-winning agency, and that's what I wrote down, I want an award-winning agency and we want an award. You can't do that. You can't do that by yourself. So the human aspect of it all is where you win.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't know about creatives is that we need freedom to operate. And a lot of people don't really realize that. It's like creativity has to flow. It has to flow. And if I'm doing too much and there's too much happening, it stifles your creativity. So I love that, you know, you are this person, but you are a creative. And a lot of times people will find it difficult to kind of work with creatives and understand that, like, I gotta flow a little bit. If you really want me to perform the way you want me to perform, don't be trying to, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't be trying to bog me down with all this stuff, because I believe that creativity is a feminine force, whether you're male or female, because of just the way it needs to flow and the way it manifests itself is just very feminine. Mm-hmm. So feminine energy does not thrive in any kind of environment where it feels restricted. So that's awesome that you kind of have those people around you, and we all need to how to reach out for help, even if you're not a businesswoman. If you're just a mother, hire a cleaning lady, please. Get a meal prep plan for you and these kids. Like, you know, like figure something out that allows you a little bit of freedom to go do your nails, to go. Like, I remember when I have a baby, I have a 9-month-old, and I would have girlfriends be like, while I was pregnant, I had, you know, it's a pandemic. What do you call it, Alicia? A panoramic baby boom. So I have all these friends that were pregnant and had babies before me and after me or whatever. And some of my friends that had babies, they would be like, oh, I haven't showered in 3 days. Ooh, it's like, And I know that's like a normal thing, apparently, for women. When you just have a baby, you're just doing all these things. And I told myself, I was like, I am never going to miss a shower. I don't care what's going on. I don't know who need to come get this baby, but mama's taking that shower is for me, you know? And it was just like opening my mouth and asking for help and getting grandma to come and getting auntie to come and using the people in your life and using your tribe and not feeling so prideful and so independent that I ask for help. It really does help you have it all when you have people around you that can cultivate that life with you.
Yeah. And I really, really love what you were saying, Rakia, about you wrote it down what you wanted. You wanted an award-winning agency. You wanted this, you wanted that. And so many of us, and I used to be one, thankfully, I've graduated from that need to please everybody and to do what everybody else wants me to do. Now it's excuse my French, but it's a FU season. If I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it. That's it. But it's crazy because so many of us focus on what's expected of us instead of what we truly, truly want. And it's especially something for women, even Southern women, because we're taught to please everybody. Don't be too loud, come in, do what you need to do, make sure everybody has their things, make sure your man is taken care of or your partner is taken care of, make sure the kids have what they need, make sure the job has what they need. And nobody says, make sure you have what you need. So how do we even begin to uncover like what it is that we truly do want? Like, where do we start? You said you wrote yours down, but like, do we start there? What does that look like?
So I think, for a lot of folks, if you separate sort of personal and professional, in professional aspects, we tend to invest more. So, for our businesses, for the work, because you're spending more time. So you invest more because if you're someone that's working a 40-hour week, you're investing 8 hours a day. When you come home, your travel time or whatever, some people are not traveling back to work yet, but then there's your dinner time, there's your me time. But are you investing? You don't have 8 additional hours to invest in yourself. So I think a lot of folks, and I'm speaking just as an entrepreneur in the world of business, one of the things that we typically do is we invest a lot in our mission statement. Our mission statement is who we are, what is our commercial, what are we investing in the world, how are we impacting that? And then we have our vision statement. And I'm a visionary. So as a visionary, I'm future thinking, I'm forward thinking. And so a lot of folks are visionary. You just have to tap into that. And so what is your vision statement? And so my vision statement was, being an award-winning agency, being an agency with at least 30 people. I started out with just myself and $2,500 and an intern helping me. So I had to imagine like a woman that had been on unemployment. I was unemployed as a TV producer and I was getting a check for $500 a week. If I had set in my mission statement at that point, I would have been like, I'm unemployed. I am going to, make what I can make happen. I'm going to do the thing. But I had to constantly be a visionary. And as a visionary, I was like, I see myself walking down, and I'm a visual. So I'm like, I see myself in this amazing suit with my laptop in a boardroom talking to people. I always imagine myself in a boardroom with a lot of seats and a lot of people. And I would always say, what am I saying to these people? What are the ideas that I'm putting out? And when you are in a space where you're just thinking about your mission and what you're giving to the world, that's half of it. You've got to invest as much in your mission, where you are, what you do, what you're impacting, as much as your vision statement, the forward thinking. What do you want to be? How are you going to do that? How are you going to backstep into that? And how it's going to impact you later. So I think that's one distinction between folks that I've been interviewing. I've been doing a lot of work interviewing a lot of unicorn companies and founders of unicorn companies and soonicorn companies. My sweet spot are the soonicorns, the people that are soon to be the unicorn. Like, what do you need to become that unicorn company? Because guess what? Maybe being a unicorn company isn't it. But I would say the common thread for those folks are that they're visionary. They're looking and they're studying other leaders. One founder, one CEO of a unicorn company, I asked him, what made you super successful? And he was like, I read a marketing manual by the RZA for Wu-Tang. And he was like, the RZA has always been a visionary, and I needed to lean into being a visionary of like where I wanted my company to go and where I want it to be. So if you think more about the visionary aspect of it, where you want to go, where you want to be, and what does it look like physically, mentally, physiologically, what that feeling is. Do you feel it in your heart? Do you feel it in your stomach? Do you feel it in your arms and your hands? That's where we should be leaning into. And then you map out the plan. Okay, that's how I'm going to get, here are the goals. Here are the objectives. Here are the tactics. Here are the minute tactics that I'm going to do in order to get here. And simultaneously, how is that fulfilling the mission of where I currently am and the impact that I'm sort of bringing to the world or bringing to my immediate space right now?
Man, you talking my language. Ooh,
right. We actually had a conversation about that, Alicia, when we were talking about visualization, how you have to push past just, like everyone manifests everything now, but it's just like the next level of that is really visualization and understanding. And I love what you said, because this is what I talk about with my clients, is attaching the emotion to it. Where do you feel that? What does that look like? What does that sound like? What do you smell like? What is that really like, bringing it to life in your mind? But I think a lot of times what happens to most of us is sometimes we create ceilings for ourselves that aren't really there. And then it's hard to visualize it, because then the doubts come in. It's like, oh, I am this person, I am this visionary, but what if this happens? But what if that happens? And then and don't tell nobody your vision now. And then they come in with their doubts and opinions and the what ifs and all the reasons why things can't happen. So
they steal it.
Right.
They steal it.
Yeah, exactly. So what advice would you give to people to kind of push past those limitations or those perceived limitations, especially, if they decide to share their vision or whatever? Because a lot of times I believe that that's what holds most people back. Because like you said, we are all visionaries. It's just tapping in, but most of us don't even get there.
Right. I think so. A few things, and this is, this is not proven or scientific. Whenever there's, a difference between like the fact base and like what I use for myself.
Yeah.
And I think there have been moments of time where I just had to completely sit in stillness and focus on what the complete objective is, or what the complete objective was. There's so much noise out there. As you know, we get completely distracted. Before it was practice your elevator pitch in 30 seconds or less. And then with the attention spans becoming so diminished, it was 15 seconds. Now marketers and researchers and folks in the science world are saying that our attention spans are like 8 seconds. Yeah, maybe 7 seconds. I've heard 8 seconds, but if you think about how short attention spans are and your own attention span, you have to do everything in your power to really sit in your stillness. So being still doesn't necessarily have to be all the things that we see now, like meditating and all of that. It's just being able to eliminate things that are contributing to the noise, whether it's, I know a lot of folks do social media fasts. A lot of folks will sit and write things down. A lot of folks will take 48 hours just to focus on their business goals. We just did a multi-day company retreat. And we knew with all the folks we were flying, we flew out our LA folks, our East Coast folks, and we all met in one location. And of 21 people, we said we knew we needed 4 days to eat, like to be celebratory, to be reflective, and to do strategic planning. So that was stillness for us. We were still partying a little bit and having fun, but stillness was eliminating all of the additional extra constant noise. So sitting in your stillness and being really laser focused on what you want those goals to be. Some people will have their goals be like 7 things. And it's okay to have one major goal. Like, what is your one audacious goal? Your one audacious goal could then spring into 4 sort of product things or 4 pieces of those things. But I think sometimes we overwhelm ourselves. I've done it. I'm like looking at a piece of paper, a Post-it note that I stuck up last year, and it says RR focus, big goals. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things on there. 6. And I look at it now and I've done 1, 2, 3 and a half of them. Now I would have just focused on those 3
Yeah.
I would be looking at this year a little different, but I put 6 and they were large, 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 large. They were all
That's how I
audacious.
am.
You gotta
Oh.
have a balance between large and audacious and
Mm-hmm.
doable. You gotta give yourself grace for the doable goals.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm like, ooh, the bigger, the brighter, but it is something that I am now seriously working on. What does it look like to do what I can when I can, understanding that slow progress is still progress? Because I'm high functioning, I'm very ambitious. I go into the room and in my mind, I own this thing. I don't care if I can't afford the drapes. This is what I own. I envision myself in power positions, and I'm smelling what the room, like you were saying, I'm smelling what the room feels like when I'm sitting down with presidents of countries and advising them and consulting with them. And so, like you, I too write out these big visions, big dreams, and big goals. But I do like what does it look like to focus on 3 instead of 10, right? Like it's still a phenomenal job,
Right.
because excellence is, that's the standard anyway. So what is it? Do you feel like that's maybe one of the biggest greatest inhibitors to what we truly do desire, the going after so much that you don't get it all? Or do you feel like it's maybe something else, an internal thing versus we're doing too much type of thing?
Yeah, I think that question, I mean, it's always dependent on the person. There are highly functioning people. And if you're a highly functioning, high agency person, so there's low agency people and high agency people. Low agency people are like, I want to be high functioning, but I can't figure all the things out for myself because I do let things distract me, or I don't see the bigger picture, or I feel defeated or deflated very easily. And that's fine. You know, and you're aware that you might be more of a low agency, lower frequency person. That's fine. Then you need to make sure that you're pacing yourself in waves where you're like, it's realistic. High agency and high functioning people, you're okay to be unrealistic and shooting for the moon and falling in front of everybody saying, I'm publicly saying I wrote down 6 and I did 3.5.
Yeah.
High functioning, high agency people are like, well, F that. I'm okay with that. I said 6, but I did 3.5. So what? I'm still going to write out 6 goals. It really depends on who you are. And I think taking these like tests and things, they're really understanding who you are and what you want to bring to the world. I think is par for the course. Are you a high agency person? Are you a high functioning person? Are you a low agency person? Are you a low frequency person? Are you an analytical person? Are you a critical thinker? Are you a creative? There's some people that are critical thinkers and not creatives. And those are the people you need. I had someone analyze me many years ago, and it took me 5 years to understand what this person was saying. And it was so simple. The person was saying to me, it was a news anchor, and she was interviewing me about my business. And she said, hey, Rakia, you're a true right brainer. You are creative, but she said, you also operate with a lot of your left brain. You know how to execute and you know how to implement. You just need to know how to balance both of them and be equally distributed. And I was like, how is this person going to tell me to be equally distributed? Like, why do I want to be equally distributed? One day I might want to be 90% creative and 10% critical thinking. However, when I finally caught up with what she had to say and like took my ego out of it, it was like, I get it. You can't always be super high functioning, high frequency, high creative. You've got to be able to plan out your creative time. Maybe you say, hey, my creativity today should be at 50 and my critical thinking should be at 50 because that's the day that I'm walking into. Or tomorrow it should be, hey, you've got to go into all of these meetings and you need to be 90% creative because you have your entire team there and they can do the critical thinking. And only you need to lead 10% on the critical thinking aspect of it. So it's being able to balance your critical thinking skills, the cerebralness that you bring to the world, in addition to your creativity, if you're a creative. And I know a lot of folks that I work with, they'll say, oh, Rakia, I'm not creative. I'm like, we're having a two-way conversation. You are creative. I think everyone in some capacity is creative, is a creative.
Yeah, me too.
all of those things. You just have to know what to tap in on which day of the week.
Yeah, you were you were created, so you are creative. Like you are. It's just that's so true. I love that. I love that idea of like just realizing that you are creative, but not everybody's a singer, not everybody's a painter, and that's how creativity has been demonstrated to us. It's like those are the creative, the artsy part, like people, and it's like no, that's not all that creativity is, So it's like I always like to think of myself like I come from the creator so that I can create. And it's important to tap into that and figure out what works for you as opposed to comparing yourself to another person's creative energy and how they manifest it. Because we all know that comparison can be the thief of joy. And a lot of times I think that's what for me, I think that's a lot of people's greatest inhibitors is that comparison game that we play. And like what you guys were saying about, comparing your chapter 2 to someone's chapter 20. It's like, yeah, but we read at different paces. We all do this stuff at a different level. And it's important to kind of know when you need to turn things on and turn things off. And just, it's about flowing. I mean, it just, you ebb and you flow on different days. And if you can find a flow, I mean, I feel like there's nowhere you can't go. It's like the possibilities are endless.
I love that.
Truly. And they say, the 2 most important days of your life is the day you were born and the day like you discover why. So like how has figuring out your own purpose changed how you approach life? Like what does that look like?
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I have to be honest, I don't think I really found out until later on who I was, like who I completely was. I think there were like little snippets of it for me. And I always let people tell me who I was. Like people would be like, Rakia, you're this and you're that. And a lot of it would be, I would say for the most part, positive. And then there were a couple of them that were like, you're doing too much or you're this or you're that. And when I initially like started my career, I went to college to go to school for science because I wanted to be a dentist. And I was like, I want to be a dentist. I know, I wanted to be a dentist. I love teeth. I still love teeth.
Okay.
But that wasn't who I was. And so at that point, I was letting my parents tell me like, oh, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And so to me, I was like, oh, okay, I have to fit in that box. And my only creativity was like, maybe not a doctor or a lawyer, but then I'm a dentist. So I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm like really living who I am. Yeah. But as I got older, and for me, I had kids early on. I had my first child at 24. And then by 31, I think it was 31, I had 3 children. And so when you are someone who is living for someone else, and as a mother, I would say, you have I'm a wife, I'm a mother. I was putting myself last. So I wasn't writing down like what I needed to do. I was writing down like who I needed to be as a mother. And my prayer would always be like, please let me to be a great wife, a great leader, a great mother. But I wasn't like, hey, I want to be the best me. I want to like know exactly who I was. And so as visual people, I actually had to write them down. And it wasn't until I took time after like my kids were like a little more self-sufficient to say, this is who I am. This is what I want to offer to the world. And this is what I want my legacy to be. If I had to leave today or tomorrow, what would I want people to say? Rakia built a company and it did all of this and it did all that. Like, what do I want people to say? So I started thinking about, not in a morbid sense, like, hey, if I left today or tomorrow, but more along the lines of what can I do to impact my tomorrow? What do I want to be said about me? What do I want to be carried on? What do I want those to show up in? And so I feel like my legacy, I've been able to build really great leaders, amazing leaders, people that have gone on to do brilliant things, start their own companies, make their own brands, and people that are still entrepreneurial that still support me and keep the spark going. So I feel like one of my biggest legacies are the people that I've been able to build. It's not just like I'm taking this all for me and it's me and it's me and it's me. It's like, no, I'm sprinkling on this person. I'm the wind beneath this person's wings. I get to do that. And that's the legacy. And then they should be able to go on and say, I built this person. And then those people should go on and say, I've been the wind between that person, wind beneath that person's wings. And so I think it's, being able to sort of concentrate and then radiate all of the things that I've been able to, do. And I think good legacies reverberate without the person having to be around or without the person having to talk about it. And if your gifts can make room for you, then your gifts can then make room for other people. And those gifts will make room for other people. And then it's magnified. And it's like, you can't be on this earth to be self-serving, to say, I made $1 billion or whatever it is, all of the unicorns and soonicorn companies that I've interviewed. And that was my sort of social experiment this year. I wanted to be able to interview a lot of unicorns and soonicorn companies to see where their level of thinking was and what were the common threads and how are they leaving a legacy. And so being able to be a constant learner and do that kind of research has also enabled me to say, how can I, as Rakia Reynolds, leave a legacy, be impactful, and contribute to this falling down of a world that we live in.
Well, wow. No, that's powerful. That is so powerful. I love how you break down what a legacy is and how what it means to you to leave behind a legacy. I think a lot of times when we think about legacy and things like that and generational wealth and all those words these days, it's like we're only thinking about physical things and money and property and businesses, but it's like it's so much more than that. It's about having this abundance mindset that the work that you do will serve others for generations to come. I mean, that is so beautiful. That's beautiful.
I love it. So where can we, because this conversation was so dope, where can we stay connected, all the things?
Well, I think I'm echoing a little bit, but Rakia Reynolds. So on Instagram, that's a lot of my story behind the glory, feed posts, but my stories are really stories. I use Instagram as my sort of blog and my stories as real stories of things that are happening behind the scenes. And Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other places are but I'm having the most fun on Instagram right now, telling my story and then doing the glory behind the story on my stories.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, listen, y'all can stay connected with the Triggered AF family at Triggered AF PC. You can stay connected with me at Alicia Reese and Danny at Danny Foster Coaching. Thank you so much for your time, your energy.
This was great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was great. I loved it.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Triggered AF. Remember, don't be consumed by your triggers. Confront it and then work to release it. Whether you leave us more triggered than you came or you're feeling like you've been open to a new perspective, our hope is that you've grown. Make sure to share this episode with a friend who's trigger happy and tag us while you're listening. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next week, pull it together, girl.